Yeah, there was, for those listening on the podcast, we just saw the images of Javier Aguirre, the Mexican manager, was struck with what appeared to be a full beer can, struck in the head, needed stitches, opened up a big wound, lots of blood. Here's what Aguirre had to say after the match, kind of downplaying the incident, actually. Quote, nothing, it's football. They deserve to win. They were better than us in areas. I've got nothing left but to congratulate them and, well, to try to lift my team's spirit. The other thing, there's no point in even mentioning it because, well, it's football. I'm not one to complain. CONCACAF has fined the Honduran FA, and Honduras will play their next competitive CONCACAF game behind closed doors, their next competitive home CONCACAF game. CONCACAF has also opened up an investigation into Javier Aguirre's behavior, which, if you watch the broadcast, you could definitely see, like, some back and forth between he and the Honduran fans who were right there up against
they're saying he provoked the
up against the sidelines. What'd you make of the incidents? You've been in that kind of that cauldron, so you could probably best relate to it.
Yeah, Mal mentioned it, and I completely 100% agree that such a great performance by the Honduran team was marred by something like this. Like, you just beat this team, beat them soundly. You intimidated them, you bullied them on the field, you sent them home in a humiliating fashion, and you do this. Now, not only is it anti-football, anti-humane, not only is it disgusting, there's no place for this in this game, and I think CONCACAF falls short of the sanctions. They should be more severe. But you rob those players, those Honduran players, of their moment. This one or maybe more than one idiot fans, because it was going on all game. And Javier Aguirre provoking, you can get into that in their own investigation. We'll let that go through and have, the proper jurisdiction, whatever the case may be, due diligence. But you cannot do this. You cannot do this in 2024. We've seen this too many times. There's an actual full beer being thrown at him. It was lucky that it didn't hurt him.
Yes.
It did hurt him. That it didn't hurt him worse, right? It didn't lose an eye.
That's a 65-year-old man.
Totally,
Yes.
that hits him in the right part of the temple. We're having a totally scary conversation.
And it's just disgusting that this is going on, and there's going to be all these idiots online. Well, what about this with the Mexican fans? That's whataboutism.
Can I make one point here? Because it's like, oh, they did this, and so it ruins that. It's like, of course there were lots of things thrown on the field, but it's like one dude who made that choice to throw a can, and that person's on the hook, and that person's just a disgusting, low-life human being who needs to be punished.
And that's the one person that actually hit him because there were already projectiles being launched.
I just don't want to make it a Honduras thing or a Central America
absolutely
thing.
Not. That's why I said one or those fans. Now, if I could just really quickly add this. The worst possible thing you should have done is that. The Mexican national team is defeated. They are done. No backbone after this game. You gave them bulletin board material. You gave them something to fight for. You gave them now an edge going into the second match. This was 2-0, but when that beer can hit Javier Aguirre, that was a turnaround they needed. You gave them something to play for.
Mal?
I mean, where to start? I'll start by saying that Javier Aguirre was wrong interacting with the fans.
In the way he did.
He should only focus on the game.
He should be above
Strictly on the game. This is someone who has managed in the UEFA Champions League. He managed in Europe for many, many years. He's an experienced manager. He should not be looking back and saying the things that he said to the fans. That's number one. Now, that doesn't excuse the fans' behavior. Let me make that very, very clear. It does not excuse it. And what I think it's even more concerning is that we've all worked on the field, games with high-intensity rivalries.
Yeah.
And every time we go and work a game like that, we are directed, instructed by ESPN, secured by everybody. Just keep your eyes open, right? Be smart about things. This goes beyond that because the field reporters that were covering the game had to be also protecting themselves from a projectile not hitting them, not striking them. And that should not be happening. So the punishment by CONCACAF is laughable. Laughable. Just one game without fans in the stands. Fine, I don't even know how heavy the fine is. Whatever it is, it's not enough. because you cannot play professional soccer at this level under those conditions.
You can't go to a game if your safety isn't guaranteed.
Exactly. If you have to be looking back over your shoulder, trying to protect yourself from God knows what. So that's completely inexcusable. Now, the reaction by the Soccer Federation of Honduras, it's also laughable, shameful. Yes, acknowledging the events, but also publicly blaming Javier Aguirre for interacting with the fans the way he did. I think that speaks volumes of how soccer is handled in Honduras, and it's a disgrace. But sadly, my biggest conclusion is that this sadly is a reflection of soccer in our region. We should not be running away from that, because this is not the first time that something like this has happened. In Honduras, some other places. So when we try to put it under the rug, we should not be doing that. These has happened before.
How many?
And let's just, I'll finish by saying this. It has happened before, and the way CONCACAF handled it sadly means that it will probably happen again.
I'll go off the top of my head very quickly, but we saw El Salvador a few years back, some issues happened in the game. There was a lot of injuries. I do not recall if there were fatalities. We saw in Levi Stadium in San Jose a man stabbed in a Gold Cup game here in the United States, Mexico versus Qatar, I believe. We've seen Atlas versus Querétaro, Liga MX. Sadly, Mauricio's right. You know, these things happen and they get swept under the rug. On to the next.
Yeah. How many conversations like this have we had on this show in just, the almost 4 years that we've been doing it? Real quick, I mean, we do have to talk about the game and the second leg that's coming up. A hugely disappointing performance, Mal, for Mexico. Yep. I don't know about you. It feels like every time you watch the Mexican national team play now, it's a new rock bottom. And unlike the other times, at this point now, there's nothing left to change, right? Like, you could change from Tata Martino, you could change from Coca, you could change from Jimmy, you could change to Javier Aguirre. Now you just look at it and you made all those changes, and the core issue is still the same. The team has the ball a lot and does nothing with it, and when they don't have the ball, they are incredibly delicate and incredibly vulnerable.
Bottom line, players are not good enough. Simple as that. And I remember we were very optimistic when we were on this show talking about the way Mexico played the U.S. in Guadalajara. And we were, Raúl Jiménez, what a performance. We are looking forward to him doing it again with the national team. Sadly, it feels that was the exception to the rule being the team being extremely mediocre. And the saddest thing for me was the moment Javier Aguirre was appointed, I thought, okay, things are probably going back to normal in terms of there's going to be some certainty in terms of the starting 11.
Sure,
the best players are going to start.
Yeah.
Players are going to be playing in their best spots, right? And then we come to this game that, by the way, gives you a ticket to play the Nations League semifinals and a direct ticket to play the Gold Cup in the summer. And first question is Guillermo Ochoa starts. You can go, okay, it's Guillermo Ochoa, maybe not the biggest of deals, maybe it's Malagon time, but okay, it's Guillermo Ochoa. And he makes a mistake. And then you see Julián Quiñones being back in the squad, which is good, playing on the right, it's not good. He plays 45 awful minutes. But then when he starts playing better, second half,
take him off.
He'd take him off. So a lot of head-scratching decisions by Javier Aguirre. If this was Tata Martino, if this was Diego Coca, if this was Jimmy Lozano making those decisions, we would be killing those guys. I don't know why we're not doing the same with Javier Aguirre.
Not to mention the fact that Henry Martin left totally.
Oh, yes,
totally
absolutely.
Get the lineup out of the 18, and you're bringing in basically Liga MX's journeyman instead to throw up top. Very quickly, outside of a puncher's chance, does Mexico have anything in this second leg? They did it a year ago.
No,
down
absolutely.
2-0.
Absolutely. Listen.
Really?
Yeah.
Based on what, man? What did
Because
you see?
they did it a year ago, and this version of Honduras, who's not a very good version. Listen, Luis Palma came on because he's got some injury issues, and he scored 2 goals, but Luis Palma's at half gas. Choco Lozano is still injured. You got a plethora of players that aren't there for a lot of reasons, like Giotto and Albert Ellis, who's recovering from a coma. So there's reason for hope if you're the Mexican national team. But that depends on Javier Aguirre. I knew about the level of play of the Mexican national team player, and I could accept that. There's not enough level, not enough talent on this team. Javier Aguirre was here because he's the guy who makes the right decisions. You play Quiñones on the right, you put Memo in goal, you put Cesar Montes in a position that's not his, you take Romo, who's one of your better players, out. Luis Chavez hasn't been Luis Chavez for a better part of 8-10 months. These errors, these mistakes, these journeymen who come on the game instead of Henry Martin, those are on Javier Aguirre. So Javier Aguirre could get his house in order. They've got a shot.